Hi, Stephen. We've just finished a couple plays throughs of your game. We've had a good time. Now we have some things that we wanted to talk to you about our experience with. We're going to start by handing it over to Adam, and he's got some things to kick us off.
Thanks, Tyson. Stephen, thanks for sending the game. We enjoyed playing it. I don't know how far into the process you are, but I think there's definitely somewhere to go with this, and so would love to encourage you to keep going on the game. I felt like the game towards the end of the round really started to pick up, get interesting, and create a lot of interesting choices to make. It was fun to mess around with other people. I especially loved the birdhouses where we kept stacking our birds and our numbers on each other. That was really fun. So there are definitely moments in this game that I think are really fun already. And however, I felt like it took a while to get to those really fun moments. And I felt like when I first started playing the game, it was almost probably halfway through the round, or maybe even 3/4 of the way through the round, before I felt like I had to bump into somebody. And that was on the first playthrough. The second playthrough, I actually made it a choice to go and mess around with other players, and it was a little bit more fun that way. But I personally like it when a game forces me into that interaction with another player. And I felt like if I was just trying to be strategic and get away from the other players so I could score as many points as I could score, that I was able to do that. And with as much board space as there is, I was able to run away from the other players, or at least just dominate my one branch and then move over to the next board and start playing the next board. And unless I tried, I could play a really separate game pretty easily. So again, I thought that it got to some really interesting choices about halfway through, but for me, it took a little too long to get there. And also, as Ryan was reading the rules to us, I struggled to figure out, usually when I'm learning the rules on something sticks out and makes me go, ooh, I can't wait to play that part of the game, or something really interesting grabs me. When he was reading the rules, I couldn't see what that interesting choice was going to be right off the bat, because I just thought, okay, there's all these spaces and I could probably just run around and stay away from everyone, which could have been a good strategy for points, but didn't make a very fun game for me. So I think it's got those elements in there, but I just think the pacing needs to be worked on.
Well, do you have any suggestions of how he could fix the pacing on that, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. I think having less spaces and building it and structuring it so you have to play more rounds would be really interesting to me, because then some of these piles get picked over in the first few rounds, and maybe there's a few hot places to go in the first round, then those get picked over and everyone's kind of getting forced onto other boards. But I think less spaces, or even just less birds, so that you're not filling every space, but I
was thinking actually doing
a
combination of both, honestly. I think you could limit the amount of birds you have and spaces, so it kind of provides this value. We all agree, I think, that we thought that this tree area was a little bit more valuable, but it has plenty of room for everybody to grow on, which was fine if that's what you're going for. But I think by limiting spaces on some of or all of these areas and limiting how often you can put out your birds, I think you could have, it would fix that, it would make it pace a little bit differently in some ways that I think would be really intriguing. And I feel like, in my mind, and this could be completely wrong because we haven't messed with this, but in my mind, having it quicker kind of puts a little bit more urgency. When I got closer to the end of my bird deck, I was like, oh, I only have a few more turns to be able to do this. And so the urgency for me was a little bit more there.
Yeah, I can see that. Every time my stack got low and the board filled up, that's when it got interesting. So if you can make that happen sooner, that might help.
Yeah, I think that it would be helped a lot by having multiple rounds. And being, I think you had that a little bit in the instructions, like do a best of 3.
It was kind of unclear.
The game should be very intentionally structured to be played through multiple rounds. And there was something that Tyson had actually mentioned earlier about set collection. That if we have multiple rounds and some things are more important than others, or your strategy has to change over the rounds, you get a little bit more interaction. I think that makes it. I don't know. I think that kind of slips into what I want to talk about is the target audience is a little confusing in this game. I guess if you want to, I guess which way we put our suggestions kind of goes to where you want your target audience of this game. Because if you want it to be more strategic, then that's the thing. But you're going to force interaction and make it, you know, a more difficult game by doing that way. By you know, making it obvious that people need to go for resources, and it becomes a little more cutthroat and it forces interaction. Here you do have it like nice and big and open. So if you're just having, you know, if you just want this to be a game for kids, that's just a lighthearted game where you don't have to screw each other over at all to get points, you can do that. But then you have that problem of then someone has to choose to screw with you because there's enough room for everybody. And so then it kind of gets into this weird, like, competitive space. So, yeah, I think the game should either kind of force people to choose, either force people to interact in that way so it doesn't feel bad when you do it. Because I think every time that someone put their bird on my branch, I took it a little personally. I'm like, hey, come on, there's plenty other branches. Space. There's plenty of other places you could have gone to score just as many points. And now you've turned this thing into a fight when it didn't have to be. And it should have to be a fight right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I would maybe,
Well, and that goes into the theme idea. If this is about birds, the early bird gets the worm. If the fight's going to be there, it's because somebody was getting to the space in a way that was more opportune than the other.
Right. And I think you have I didn't really read this in the rules to the guys because it didn't pertain to us, but you have the game scaled down with less people. So if there's 3 people, you only use 3 branches. And I think you should cut a whole branch out of that almost. If there's 4 people, you should have 3 branches. And if there's 3 people, you should have 2 branches. If there's 2 people, you should have 1 branch.
Makes it way more competitive.
So then it's definitely, you know, then there's not enough room for everybody unless someone decides to be a jerk. There is like, okay,
it's almost the musical chairs factor.
Right, you got to be a little, like it is. It's like musical chairs with enough chairs for everyone. And if you get shoved out of your chair, it's because someone's being a jerk. And now you have a fight between 2 people and 2 other people sitting comfortably in chairs. So
but I think that brings it right back to your point of the target audience. Because really the question is, that's going to appeal to us as gamers more in general. And so if that's not what you're going for, that's perfectly fine. But there's still things that you would need to make sure that you're targeting that audience too.
So should this be about counting and math and everybody getting to play their cards and playing with some fun, you know, pieces and birds, and you know, I'm sure ultimately you want this to be like a very colorful, fun game for kids to play and stuff like that. Or is it something you want to make geared towards a little bit of an older audience that's actually a little bit more competitive? So if you do want to gear it towards the younger audiences, I would actually suggest you have a lot of work to do on the birdhouse here, because that became after about 1 playthrough, it became very obvious how to score the most points there, and it involved screwing other people over, and it involved in happening to be the player that goes last. Just has way too much power here on this board, and that feels really bad for, you know, especially for younger audiences. And like there's just definitely and ironically, making the youngest player always goes first means
they have the disadvantage.
The youngest player will always have a disadvantage,
and they're going to get discouraged and not want to play after they lose so horribly and not understand that they need to hold on to their cards until that last moment.
Well, and even if they can't. If they don't go last, it doesn't matter, because you simply build up your pile. You put like 3 or 4. If you're the person that goes last, you can safely put 5 things in this stack and then hold your 6 until the very last turn, slap it down there, and guarantee you're going to get 6 points. Or you could use that 6 to steal points from anybody else in a way that they can't prevent at all. And this stacking system, assuming we were playing it correctly, leads to just this very feel bad, obvious thing where like, hey, we need to change the, even you saw between our two play tests, we changed the play order because Adam figured out I was going to do exactly what I did to him. About 5 turns, about 3 turns into it, we both saw what was going to happen, and there was nothing he could do about it. And so, like, that felt bad to him for a while there because he knew we played games long enough together. He knew I was going to do that to him.
Yeah, well, another thing that could help is I knew both Ryan and everyone was going to have the same numbers. I knew that he would get to 2 4s in his deck at some point, or however many.
Yeah, it's almost in the luck of the shuffle of your initial thing. Like, you don't know, like, if you need to throw a 6 over here, or you need to put it over on that side because you want to have multiple things to get you maybe 3 points because it's one less. We knew that this was the least valuable field at the end because you're getting -1 to
and even
reward
to that
at the
point,
end.
I didn't play a single card on this board on the last game, and I came in second. I lost by 1 point to Adam.
Right.
Yeah, that goes to there's so many options that it's hard to interact sometimes.
And it becomes this kind of weird risk management thing where, like, once I got into it later, I was very much, okay, I can kind of figure out this game from laying a card down here has a 1-to-1 point ratio with a risk of losing out if I don't have the majority. This one has a 1-to-1 ratio, but I only have a guarantee if I'm later in the turn. And this one's always a safe bet, but is a poor return on your investment. And that's something that an older player is going to pick up that a younger player wouldn't. And so, like, I don't think there's not enough variance in this game for it to be played, I think, across large age ranges. Games like Yahtzee are good for that because you're rolling 5 dice and there's huge amounts of variance, and a little kid can beat their dad in Yahtzee no problem. I don't ever see losing to a child at this game once I have any clue what's going on at the game. And so it should kind of be targeted not for like 10 and up, but for like 5 to 12 or something like that. Or it needs to be made a little bit more kind of competitive and a little bit more random. And now maybe, a kid can take a game from me. So I would be, cautious as to figuring out who my target audience is and then gearing the level of strategy and the level of variance that's there, and you have the examples are chess, which is a completely solved game. There's no randomness in it. You can just learn the best strategies and apply them. Or, flipping a coin, which is just, it's 50-50 and it's pure luck and there's no skill to winning that game. So you kind of got to figure out, and the more you go towards variance, the more age groups can kind of play it. So I would look at that with the lack of variance in this game, you need to specifically pick your target audience and make sure that the strategy and the difficulty level fits to that target audience, because the game's always going to fit inside that strategy and difficulty level, and that's going to shape how, what the disparity between age groups are that can play it.
Yeah, and that kind of needs to fit into the theme as well. One of my issues is I need to have a reason and some kind of a focus, some context. Why am I doing this, and what are the rewards? Like, I'm not understanding the point systems as leaves. I didn't know how leaves are coming out of a bird feeder, and why is that a reward? Why am I getting that out of a bird feeder? Why are there leaves when usually if a nest I would think of eggs? Or I'm just not understanding who I am and why am I playing this game. Obviously you're a different color bird. I'm noticing that you did different colors: red, green, yellow, and blue. If you want to go with those themes, you could go with like cardinals as red. You could go with parakeets or macaws as green, maybe canaries as yellow, cardinals as red. I don't know if you already have a plan. If you're keeping the art as it is, you're kind of gearing towards a younger audience. So for age, that would make more sense. But if you want to become a little more aesthetic,
Well, and I think this is all prototype material, so he's
Yeah.
probably thinking towards those types of things. But I think what you're getting at is that
we don't know
purpose
what
is-
right.
this is. We don't know. Like looking at the game, just even putting it out. When we first started, I was just like, I don't know. There's so much going on, and I just don't know why or what I'm doing, and how me getting more points says that I win over somebody else. So that needs to be kind of clarified. That could even just be something in the rules. Hey, you're a bird and you're trying to make a nest for yourself, so you're gathering materials, or you're trying to make the most eggs, the babies to go on, or something. There needs to be some reason for me to want to do this.
Right, or gather food. My thought would be changing the leaves to food, or like Colin was saying, you're trying to build a nest, but then the nest one doesn't really work, so maybe you change that, or you have the
Nuts,
food,
berries,
right? Nuts, berries. You're trying to
worms.
get the most nutrients to lay the most eggs, or there's not. It lacks a clear kind of mission statement where like I am a this trying to do this, and I win by getting this. And it's not clear. Like I can't say that I played a game where I did this. It has kind of a theme together, but it just seems pretty arbitrary. I'm just kind of laying down. I don't understand how the numbers relate to the birds.
But
this
in and of
four
itself-
birds? Is this a more powerful bird?
Yeah.
Right. In and
Right.
of itself, though, to me, that doesn't matter necessarily. You don't have to have a strong theme. But it goes back to your original points of target audience. Who are you trying to target? If it's a younger audience, they can see birds and have a good time about that. But to really understand the whole purpose is it just makes it an easier experience, I think, for anybody to see, oh, okay, we're birds, and I don't get the leaves, but I would understand worms. So even changing something as simple as that to me would make my purpose seem better. I'm trying to get the best worms. I mean, that's a very common adage in the first place. Early bird gets
the leaf.
Early bird gets the worms. and so, I mean, like, you can, even just a minor switch like that would give enough of a change to me to give
would
that
help.
kind of purpose.
Or
But
just
then you
make
could
them
say,
completely uniform too, because all the points are worth the same amount. This is worth the same as this and this and this. So you can make it all one thing.
Which leads to what I wanted to talk about. But before I go on, I know, Adam, you had something to say earlier. Did you have...
No, I
Was it
was fine.
addressed?
I thought it would be interesting for you to talk a little bit more about set collection.
Which is...
Because I don't feel... I disagree with these guys. I don't think... I agree with Tyson, disagree probably a little more with Colin and Ryan. I don't think this is a theme-forward kind of game. If the mechanics become interesting enough to me, and if there's a way for me to keep it more engaging, I don't really care what I am or what I'm doing. I'm more playing the other person. I'm more interested in trying to beat them to the right space at the right time, or trying to be in the right place at the right time, or making a very interesting decision to try to strategically go there and block, or go over here and or whatever. So when the mechanics become more interesting, and maybe that's not what you're going for if this is a kid's game, but when the mechanics become more interesting, I don't really care what I'm doing. I do agree, though, however, that just making them worms instead of leaves clears up all those issues for me. I can understand what these guys are saying, but I think I'm probably more interested in a game like this for the mechanics.
It's just important to me. It's less
Yeah,
important. Like,
no,
we just
that
get
makes
different
sense.
things out of games. And
Well,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that having a 1-word, 2-word sentence that people can say, oh, it's a game where you try and do this. And I think it lacks even that. Because I guess at this point, it's a game where you try and collect leaves as birds. And you're just like, okay. And like if the mechanics work out all right, and it can be fun, it can be fun.
Yeah, it
but
can be
still,
fun
like,
still.
even if you have the best mechanics in the world, like having a little bit of like, and I
I'm
guess
just scratching
Angry
my
Birds
head a
is-
little bit,
I guess
saying,
as
like,
Angry Birds, you're just throwing birds at a wall. To
the pigs,
anger some
pigs is
so-
something.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'm wrong about that. And if it's fun, it's fun, and that's true. But I think it still helps. I think it helps people buy in initially if you can give them a sentence as to what you're doing, and that like you said, even just as simple as making it worms. I don't think you got to tell a story here, but like making it as simple as worms. The early bird gets the worm. That's good enough for me.
But see, to me, so this goes
But,
into
yeah.
exactly kind of what I wanted to talk about, as Adam and Ryan have both mentioned. I mentioned set collection at one point, and kind of what I see is that this theme is kind of convoluted and confusing in some ways, because you look at this board, it's not intuitive. Why am I gathering leaves from a nest? Why am I gathering leaves from birdhouses? I get why I'm gathering leaves from a tree. So if you're gathering the leaves to build the nest, and you're gathering the food from the birdhouses or whatever, you could just switch these things to, you already have 4 different styles of leaves. Why not just make them, well, you've got leaves maybe for building a nest, or twigs, or whatever, yarn. You could do worms for food, or seeds or nuts or berries or whatever. You could do all these different things. And then you could do these different things that kind of make sense thematically, that kind of pulls into that theme that we've been talking about. And that would kind of isolate it. Because as Colin,
and maybe the goal of the game is you're trying to feed your young. So
so as you were saying,
you're building the best nest and you're getting as many worms as you can, and that's the prize. You're trying to stock up for the winter.
Yeah, you said it earlier, though, that you didn't really understand where you were going with this. And to me, I would understand it better. When you look at the board, you didn't understand where you were going.
Yeah.
That was something for me that I also saw. I looked at this and I thought, okay, what do these all have to do? So for me, what I would consider doing is making a board, and maybe this is your plan, and if that is, that'd be great. But making a board, instead of having these 3 boards, and this may just be because it's prototype, but having one single board with different locations. And the different locations have, like, you have the tree, and then you have a nest over in somebody's yard or house or something, and then you have the bird feeder in somebody's, hanging from somebody's yard or whatever. So you have these 3 different locations, and then from them you can grab the different prizes. And going to that set collection idea, to me, is it provides value to these locations in a way that was not there. It didn't really matter to me to go to any of these locations for any reason other than in the tree. I know, like Ryan was talking about, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to get the most value here, so I'm going to go to the tree first. So it makes sense, but if you throw that thematically in why it makes the most sense by having this structure, that's where the most birds are, that's where, etc. You could tie it in a number of ways. But then if you are able to capitalize on that area and you have the most set of that type of thing, you could be working towards one type of resource if you wanted, and maybe you don't want to go the resource management route, which is absolutely fine. But
especially if you're going for the younger audience.
Exactly. But you have this idea where maybe you're gathering things for different purposes. And if it was merely thematic, even changing the leaves to something just that made sense with these locations, that made sense with these things, it would make more sense to me.
I think set collection, the reason I like set collection so much when you said it the first time, I instantly was drawn to it because for kids games, matching is a big deal.
Right.
Like set collection,
Super appeals to kids.
and it's a cool way to add another layer of interest to the mechanics as well. You've already got area control. I'm going to try to beat you to a location, or I'm going to try to overwhelm you in a location, or at a time I'm going to try to be most timely in a location. That's all area control, which I think is cool, introducing those more complex mechanics to children. I think that's awesome. So I think you've got a really good opportunity to do that, and I think you're already doing that well. But adding that set collection in could add another layer of strategy to say, if I collect one of each type, I get an extra bonus point.
Yeah,
or
that would be fun.
2 extra bonus points for collecting one of each type, or for every 3 of the same type I collect, I get an extra bonus point. Right. So that's more like motivating me. Well, all of this certain type of leaf is taken here and here. I got to get over to this nest and grab some more of those leaves to help build my set. And that adds a new layer of interest.
Return on investment so much because it's.
But it helped me complete my set, which got me bonus points.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, and it adds a whole lot to the game without complicating it too much. And again, you're already there with the images.
Yeah, you're already going to print out different pictures anyway. So.
And I think explaining that mechanic on top of it to a kid as well works. Like you're trying to match them. Get one of each. You know, I have 3 young kids. We're constantly doing that. We have tons of their games is all about matching, about what's line up 3 of these different things together or collect 3 of the same things. And so I think it works for kids. I think it makes the game more interesting. I think clean up a few thematic things, fix the pacing a little bit, and add a little bit more interest to the mechanics. And I think this could quickly, make a huge leap as a game.
And that's something I wanted to touch on a little bit as we wrap this up, is I just wanted to say that I do think there is something here. I don't think it's there by any stretch of the imagination yet, but we enjoyed it. I think that we had some fun with the player interactions, the intricacies about it. There were things that we really enjoyed about it, but identifying your target audience is really important so that we can make sure we're doing that. Throwing in that set collection, it really is simple to do that matching thing. And looking at this board, if I'm a younger audience coming in, as an older audience looking at this board, I didn't really intuitively understand it. But you tell me, I've got to get all the worms. Well, that makes sense. I can, even if I don't grasp the whole concept of the game, there's a worm here, here, and here. Okay, I'm going to try and go for those spots.
Yeah.
You do that, and I think it does well. And so I think there's a lot that you have going right here. There's just, you need to do some tweaking in order to make it address that audience that you're looking for.
Yeah, we want to talk a little bit about these cards as well, and their function within the game. We noticed we ended up with the 1, 2, 3 game 2 and the 4, 5, 6 game 1. And they added a little bit of value as far as a little bit of mystery, especially over here. This is where they really made the most difference. It doesn't really matter over here because if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over here, if you have you're trying to get the highest total. Over here, it doesn't really matter as well because you're not really. You're just trying to do it yourself.
You just don't need to contend over there, so that's why it doesn't matter. But if you were contending over there, it would matter. Mm-hmm. So I get that, but I would get rid of. I think that I would just get rid of the 1, 2, 3 and the 4, 5, 6 cards. I think that having some space in between, just because if it's just high or low that isn't shown, like it really just is kind of okay, like it helps a little bit. But I think having when there could be that range where that face 1 down could be a 6 or it could be a 1 adds a lot more point to the bluffing. So I think maybe our reservations on that are because unfortunately we drew, I think, the 2 least interesting.
But I'm with Colin on what he was saying. He was saying it only works on this board, which is the tree, and I agree because I felt concealing information only hurt me in the birdhouses. Because I'm forgetting. It's already hard enough with enough people stacking to remember where my run was. I'm only hurting myself by covering that up. And no one's thinking halfway through it, I'm going to lay a 5 when I've just previously laid a 1 and a 2. And they saw those. Obviously, if I'm laying anything, they think it's going to be a 3.
I like the idea of being able to bluff on everything, honestly.
Even over here? I mean, to me, it just confuses the birdhouses and it confuses the nest, too. Like, I'm trying to total 7 here with, hold on.
I think Colin's saying lose the cards altogether and just have the option on any board to go face down or face up with any
Face down or face up.
So you can decide if you want to show the math or not show the math. Or over here, you just leave them face up.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I like that some of them are face up and face down.
But
well, I
think it worked
because
really well for this board.
There were so many cards here that
boards.
it's like, well, we used one of them per what we did as rounds, and that was it. So
I think we definitely you should have like faster. This game should definitely go across 3 or 4 different rounds, so these can flip up and change. Or maybe maybe those change.
Maybe those are the rounds. Like you actually have to play through one of each of these. Yeah,
like
you have to change through one of either. And then after you play each one of the tables, the game is over, and whoever has the most points after each of those wins the game. That could be some way to do it.
And maybe that is how it is, and we just didn't understand
it.
And
it could be.
Well, please correct us.
Yeah, and it didn't say in the rules anywhere that we should change the owl cards ever that I saw. So that's the thing. There was no real discussion about how to start a new round or how to start a new game other than just like shuffling up and
and that almost even brings it to like why are these cards here? Like what purpose what's the theme?
Yeah, this
that,
was
like
just
what
the
are
owls.
they?
It to me,
What's
if
the
you're
reason?
little birds and they're owls, I can see how an owl would scare you away. So you would be hiding. So you would actually be hiding in the tree. It makes sense. You actually have the owl in the tree. I can see where that could come into play, though it's not obvious. It's
Well, if,
and that's me attributing it to that. So it could very well be
Right.
completely.
and the owl
not
did
that.
draw like my eye a lot of the game. Like I feel like it needs a focal point. Something needs to be like in the middle to kind of draw you into the whole game instead of my eye doesn't know where to go. And I don't know. That makes it a little chaotic to me. And I'd like to be able to look in the middle and then kind of peer out. And you can do that with 3 games. You do like a circle into a pie. So
we really appreciate you sending us the game and taking the time to use our service. We've enjoyed playing it. We've enjoyed this feedback. We have had quite a lively exchange before and during this video. So thanks for the opportunity. If you have any questions, give us an email. Let me know, and I'll be happy to address any questions you may have. Thanks for using the Gamesmiths.